Hey guys, what's cracking? Godsman here, back again with another installment of Top 10 Card Fights. Today, we'll be taking a look at the top 10 card fights for the Overdress and Willdress anime. To clarify, this list will be going over everything from Season 1 of Overdress to Season 2 of Willdress, 4 seasons total. I did this simply because the two series are essentially a direct continuation of each other, and, quite frankly, there wouldn't be a big enough card pool of card fights to choose from if I didn't do things like this. Anyway, with Willdress Season 2 having been completed recently, I thought now would be a good time to do a list like this, with the whole thing being rather topical at the moment. Let me just say straight up though, that this list was pretty damn hard to make. After all, there aren't a whole lot of fights to choose from, and the quality of fights in the anime after Season 2 of Overdress drastically improved. So this list was hard as hell to make, but I think I got it down. And oh boy, do we have some bangers to discuss. But before that, there's the obligatory ground rules I set for these videos. Of course, only card fights that took place during this season are eligible. Said card fights need to have been on screen, so no fights mentioned offhandedly. Finally, this list is hella based on personal preference, so don't expect things to line up objectively just because no such thing exists for this kind of list. All good? Cool, let's jump right in. I hope you enjoy. Honorable mention. Okay, so new thing I'm doing here, we've got ourselves an honorable mention. Yeah, this list was so goddamn hard that it basically demanded one of these. However, I limited it to just one fight, and that fight is Donji vs Toya Round 1. It's the fight that kicked off the new era of Vanguard anime, and holy crap, did it do it with a bang! The fight between Bruce and Bastion was the first of many instances of insanely beautiful fight animations between units, and the music playing in the background was instantly iconic. Heck, it's also a fight between best boys Donji and Toya, so yeah, lots of good stuff to love here. The reason why it's only an honorable mention though is because pretty much all the other fights on this list can also say the same thing. Great animation, music, character interactions, but they tend to excel in one of these areas or are just more involved due to the plot. By comparison, this opening fight takes place with the audience's mind in a blank slate, so we aren't as invested yet as we will be later on, so it suffers for that. But still, it deserves high honors for the wicked standard it set moving forward. Number 10. Starting off the actual list, we have another Donji fight. Spoiler warning, this ain't the last one because dude's kinda hype. And this time it's his fight with Mirai in Overdress Season 2, Episode 4. Straight away, the premise for this fight is beautifully laid out. Donji, having finally mustered the courage to face his sister Mirai, challenges her to a card fight under the guise of being her chauffeur. What starts as a friendly fight quickly turns intense as both Donji and the viewer gain some insight into Mirai's character and her wicked card fighting skills. It's both epic and fascinating, with the intrigue of the siblings' conversation being reflected in their back and forth battle. This fight also introduces Sagra, a stunning unit that's as powerful as she is gorgeous. Heck, there's some bias here, but it's also the first time where we see Mirai's theme being played, so it's a landmark fight in many respects. I should also mention that this fight occurred just prior to a small hiatus in the anime, leaving the audience with this fight a bit longer than average, so yeah, minor brownie points in the lasting impression department. Why is it only number 10 though? Well, the big thing with this fight is that it's more setup than payoff. With most of the fights on this list, a big part of what makes them great is that a key development occurs in the fight for the plot or the characters, which grants a level of fulfillment and satisfaction to previous build-up. Mirai vs Donji, on the other hand, sets the stage for the rest of the season, and the fights between Blackout and Daybreak. It's a great battle, but not one with a lot of payoff, though the spectacle and introduction of Mirai and Sagra is still enough to pull it ahead of a lot of fights, landing it at the number 10 spot. Number 9. For the number 9 spot, we're taking a look at the first of many Willdress fights on this list, Rika vs Sophie, which occurred in Willdress Season 2, Episode 2. When making this list, I knew immediately that this fight had to make it somewhere. It was the introductory battle for Sophie Bell, our resident Dami Mami of the Vanguard anime, and her Alma Jesters. What put this fight on the list for me was twofold. First off, the animation in this episode was, well, it was something else, dude. Ashura, Unica, and Youthberg both looked absolutely stunning, battling underneath the vast night sky, with lots of colors and motions really popping out to the eye. That moment where Revolform Gus rises high in the sky and throws his spear at the Vanguard has got to be one of the most well-animated and powerful attacks in Vanguard history. The other big boon of this fight is the character interactions. Throughout the fight, Rika slowly works to peel away Sophie's calm and cool facade, calling her way to Vanguard as fake and hollow. It's shocking to hear Rika say this and wax nobly like he did, but it's an appreciated aspect of his character, and eventually succeeds in revealing a glimpse of Sophie's truly twisted nature, just before he lands the finishing blow though. Overall, it's a fight that's straight eye candy and showcases an interesting twist in both fighters' characters. It goes 9th on this list. Number 8. At number 8 is Masanori vs. Zaxa Round 3, which took place during Willdress Season 2, Episode 7. Yeah, that's right. In a series with not a lot of fights, these dudes somehow fought 3 times so far, but they certainly saved the best one for last. The basic premise for this fight is Masanori pursues Mirei in the hopes of indoctrinating her into team uniforms. Zaxa, who's been keeping an eye on the bad Baldy for much of the series and harbors bad blood with the dude, is having none of it. What gives this fight a place on this list though is the sheer shock value of it all. First off, it's the big reveal for mask units, which is a highlight of the whole freaking season. And Masanori unveils this new mechanic with the kind of bravado and showmanship it deserves. It's absolutely epic and comes out of left field for Zaxa and the viewer. The fight itself is also just as explosive, with Masanori ending his opponent on turn 3 through a daunting chain of skills and power-ups which, bro, had a brother reeling by the end of it. The conclusion is also really interesting though, as Masanori claims Zaxa as the subject of uniformers instead of Mirei in order to make him their ultimate card fighter, an elevation in significance for Zaxa's character that I doubt anyone ever saw coming. It's in a way similar to Mirei vs. Donji in that it's more of a setup fight than a payoff fight, except this one is also so much more bombastic and shocking than said fight. Plus, the conclusion does recontextualize Masanori and Zaxa's rivalry in a fascinating way, so some amount of payoff does exist here. Regardless, this fight is a wild ride from start to finish and rises to number 8 on the list. Number 7. Alright, it's time for the spice. Yep, I'm putting Yu Yu vs. Shinobu all the way up to number 7 on the list. And yes, it's whack, but I gotta do it. I just enjoy this fight way too much, dude. Of all the fights in the Overdress anime, this ended up being the fight I rewatched the most, I think. Why the hell is that? Well, the fight goes down in Season 2, Episode 9, and serves as Yu's preliminary fight before confronting Mirei in the season finale. But again, why the hell do I like it so much? I guess what really sells it for me is just how satisfying the whole thing is. Shinobu is this pit stain of a human, who has done nothing but trash Team Blackout up until this point, even burning their flag. The twerp has basically zero redeeming qualities and all the makings of a guy you want to see get beat. Well, this episode delivers on that front, with sweet and earnest Yu ponying Shinobu pretty badly by the end. Now, if you're a greed on goon like me, then this fight is the biggest effing W you're gonna get in the anime. Well, until the mask gets revealed at least. Sure, we lose in the end, which kinda hurts because the Greedster has never won a fight to my recollection. But here, at least, the Thing is an absolute monster as his power reaches ridiculous heights and pushes Yu to the edge. And I consider that enough of a dub. How about you? Hell, one of the best parts of the fight is seeing Yu getting progressively pounded by Shinobu both on and off the field until he starts snapping back at the bully. He even has a miniature breakdown near the end after Shinobu ravages his hand and even heals down to 4 for insult to injury. That said, the absolute best part of the fight has gotta be the wicked comeback at the end. Our protagonist top decks Mahar Nirvana and rides it, with Yu Yu's theme crescendoing as the Grade 4 descends onto the battlefield wrapped in holy flames. Using Mahar's skill to ping Shinobu damage and bring it back to 5 is hilarious. It makes the heal a moot point. With a combination of Valiente's skill and a critical trigger, Yu Yu breaks through Shinobu's wall of security and lands an epic finish. Hearing the twerp's shrill cry as he loses it is immensely satisfying and never ceases to be enchanting. Hell, in fact, let's hear it again. Honestly, if you ever want to just feel a sense of release and see an asshole get his just desserts, then go and watch this fight again, cause it does just that. Now, I know some of you are judging me pretty harshly for putting this fight above all the other ones on this list. Before you go, this is trash, let me give you an out, because everything else on this list is pretty good. So, if you want, take this fight off the list completely, move everything behind it up a spot, and make Donji vs. Toya round 1 number 10 on the list. Boom, easy fix. But as for me, Yu Yu vs. Shinobu number 7, let's go. Number 6. Remember when I remarked on one of the previous entries being a round 3 fight? Well, this fight's even more of a trip in that regard. That's right, it's Donji vs. Toya round 3. Except it's kinda not. See, these guys have fought a crap ton in the series, so we can't really say which fight this is per se, but in terms of complete on-screen fights, this is their third and final one so far. And oh baby, is it awesome. The fight goes down near the top of Daybreak's headquarters in Season 2, Episode 11 of Overdress. This fight, more than any other, really delivers on the build-up between two characters. Like I mentioned before, these dudes fought loads of times, but Danji always came out on top until the end of Season 1, where Toya finally got a W. Thing is, this didn't exactly raise Toya's confidence against the guy, as the scoreboard still speaks for itself, but it did engender a lot of character growth for Toya as he takes up the mantle as Blackout's leader, which, funnily enough, didn't last long, but that's besides the point. He really comes into his own and finds the resolve within himself, and that resolve is tested against Danji as he fights to prove his loyalty to his sister Mirai. The fight is super solid and feels kinetic as Bruce and Bastion go head to head in their grade 4 forms. The conclusion is also hype as hell, with Toya's theme emanating in the background as he finally and definitively overcomes Danji in both Vanguard and his determination as a person. It's all around an amazing and memorable fight, which wraps up a lot of prior action in a nice way, landing it in 6th on this list. Number 5. Well, time for Willdress to dominate the rest of this list. Kicking out the top 5 is Yu vs Michiru, which took place during Willdress Season 1, Episode 12. Now, I'm sure it was probably obvious to everyone who watched the episode that this one would make it on the list, because holy crap, it's good. First and foremost, the opponent here for our main character is terrifying. Like, not physically or anything, but as a card player, the dude would be a nightmare to face off against. In the previous entry, I said Danji was pretty scary for Toya to fight because of their history together, and that's true, but here, everybody is scared of freaking Michiru. The dude was basically unstoppable throughout the season, wiping the floor with everyone who fought him, including Danji, and is also the previous champ to boot. And if that wasn't enough, Rika worships him as a god, and if Rika's ass is idolizing you, then you've definitely got respect on your name. So yeah, needless to say, things are pretty effing tense for our boy Yu, who has to square up with Cardfight Jesus over here. I mean, I'm gonna be real with y'all, I didn't know how Yu was gonna win that one, because the dude's a legend, but the fact that he did win is a big reason why this fight is on the list. So the actual fight itself is pretty short, only lasting until turn 8, but the action is intense the whole way through, so it feels pretty substantial regardless. As with basically every card fight, there has to be some sort of dialogue between the players, and the subject for Michiru and Yu is overcoming fear, which in hindsight might have been low-key patronizing considering the thing Yu is afraid of is his punk ass. Regardless, it's a good topic as it helps reflect Michiru's pseudo-mentor role for everyone he fights, not to mention Yu's determination to push forward. So then, let's talk about the thing that put this fight on the list, Yu's final turn. It's just so next level, dude. Michiru has been wailing on the boy up to this point, cornering him using Drawjewel's powerful skill. In line with his will to push on, Yu steps up to the challenge and miracle draws his boss unit, Bow to Virina. Using its skills, he wipes out most of Michiru's board and proceeds to burn through his CB to gain extra attacks and drives. It's a desperate final play, and a good offense, but not enough to break the champ. With only one drive check left, things look hopeless, but then, at the critical moment, Yu does the impossible and pulls the over trigger, overpowering Michiru's OT guard and finally beating the unbeatable. It's a crazy comeback play, reminiscent of the Shinobu Yu fight, but on a whole nother level. Hitting that OT at the last second is hella hype, and really pumps up the audience for the climactic finish. Now, I recognize some folks will complain about the MC winning due to OT sack, but gonna be frank with you, that's a pretty lame argument considering that Yu hardly ever wins with the OT in the first place. Hell, he's actually hit the OT before and still lost the fight, so I don't want to hear it, okay? Hell, the only reason this fight isn't higher is that the other 4 games are just that good, and to be perfectly honest, I went back and forth between this and the next fight a whole lot, so there's a love here that is plentiful. Yu vs Michiru is a well-rounded fight that excels in its climactic finish, putting it 5th on this list. Number 4. Categoons rise on up because number 4 is Rika vs Toya, aka Youthbrook vs Bastion, aka Paladins but not Paladins go brrr. Anyway, memes aside, this fight took place during Willdress Season 1 Episode 11, just before Yu vs Michiru, funnily enough, and was basically destined to kick ass since the moment the pairing was announced. It's just so epic, dude. The fighting animation was superb, the compilation of music was spot on and exhilarating, and the interplay between Rika and Toya was a treat to watch. Interestingly, compared to most of the fights prior, there isn't any major outside of fight stuff which goes on into the fight. Sure, you have the discussion on the value of pursuit of strength between the fighters, which we'll talk about a bit later. But outside of that, there's not a lot of context to consider between these two people. Nah, dude, this fight is just that raw. Both fighters are absolute powerhouses in the tournament, and seeing them clash was a spectacle. The animation of Youthberg and Bastion's struggle was straight fire, man, not to mention the introduction of Revolve Form Tempest. It's a very fast-paced fight that sees both sides swinging hard and not stopping until one drops to the floor. The action aside, the character moments here are very well done. This fight gives us insight into Toya's journey after the Daybreak incident, showing us how he's matured and grown throughout his time as a cardfight hobo. Nah, seriously, I think the dude legit just roams around all day dressed like the cardfighting people. Man has that dog in him. His speech on pursuing strength merely for strength's sake feels very appropriate for his character, and is a good message for Rika, who's caught up in the mentality of cardfighting for the sake of results. So the discourse here is solid. It feels appropriate for both fighters. Nice. Also, seeing Rika struggle so hard against Toya is great to see, because he pretty much blew through everyone on his way up to the semis. Taizo was kind of giving him the smoke, but it wasn't that hard. But Toya? Man's had to work hard for that W, baby. Hell, neither player was willing to move an inch for the other guy. Rika and Toya really weren't playing here. And of course, at the end of the day, my love for all things Paladin has to bleed over into this fight. As a Youthberg goon, I have a bias for Rika fights, and this is one of the best for sure. Overall, it's an immensely enjoyable fight with some of the best action in the series so far, and strong moments from both players, putting it in the 4th spot on this list. Number 3. Taking the bronze is the Season 1 finale of Willdress, that being Yu vs Rika Round 2. Now, Round 1 of their fight was in consideration for this list and is probably right behind the honorable mention. Hey, maybe now you have a new honorable mention to help replace the Shinobu fight, huh? Okay, enough of that. So, this fight is a masterpiece. The composition of all the elements are so well conceived. Animation, clean. Music, perfect. Card fighting, excellent. Character interactions, spicy, with a hint of salt. Yeah, this fight has everything. The build-up is also very much present, with Yu still sore from the beatdown he received last fight from Rika. In fact, the beating was so severe that Yu just straight up dropped Mahar and switched to Java. That's right, the dude literally swapped decks mid-tournament, which shouldn't be legal. But hey, Ren did an Asia circuit, so anything goes, I guess. Anyway, that switch is a fairly significant development in Yu's character. Heck, you could even argue that his entire path throughout the tournament has been a journey to redeem himself against Rika. So this has all the makings of a sick final confrontation. Perhaps one of my favorite things about this fight is the choreography of the fight itself, so to speak. Of course, the animation is very nice, but I'm also referring to the flow of the game. It's a bit of a longer fight, spanning 10 turns in total, but the turns are eventful, so it's far from boring. In fact, there's loads of content here. And as for the fight progresses, we see both sides gradually build up the power of their attacks while also showcasing every bit of their arsenal. What's neat is we actually get to see every Revolve form and Overdress unit used in the season in this fight, giving the fight a sense of progression which mirrors the players as well as they went through the deluxe tournament. Rika starting with Skyfall arms and then going from Zest to Gust to finally Tempest is a cool way to bring rising aggression while keeping the chronology of events. Yu doesn't follow this chronology, but does have a similar progression of power, ranging from Vils all the way up to Bar as his big push, to Garo plus Arcs as his surprise coup de grace which pays homage to his roots. Speaking of which, that surprise bit at the end, kind of a staple for good Yu fights if you couldn't tell, it brings me to the climactic aspect of this fight, or rather also the thematic aspect, where Rika's philosophy on card fighting clashes with that of our protagonist. As aforementioned, Rika believes that card fighting is about results. Yu still believes that Vanguard is about fun and being able to enjoy the passion of going all out, kinda similar to Toya's philosophy in that regard, but now he has the strength to back it up. It's a good perspective, albeit a little bit cliche coming from the main character, but the writers handle it well by not making Rika magically convert to Yu's ideology after losing because of Takno Jutsu or something. No, he still pursues strength and believes in results. But what Yu did achieve was getting the man to respect his conviction as a card fighter. See, Rika didn't even acknowledge Yu as a real card fighter in their first fight, so he had to become better in order to prove that such ideals can lead to strength, which he does achieve as we see in Season 2 when Rika recognizes Yu as a real fighter as he's facing off against Sophie. Bet you didn't expect me to bring that fight up again, huh? So, To prove the strength of his ideals, Yu needs to prove the strength of his Vanguard, making the thematic battle and physical battle taking place here one and the same, which is absolutely brilliant writing. The fight also has a lot of significance beyond just the bit Rika brings up against Sophie. It didn't just affect Mr. Koshiba, but also Urara. A recurring theme we see in Vanguard is that new fighters often get into the game over the passion they felt from watching a card fight. These fights in turn become the ideal kind of fight which they hope to reach one day. Kai watching Ren and Aichi's fight led him to the reverse. Henry watching Ren versus Leon led him to being captain of the Fukuhara Vanguard Club. And now we have Urara, who almost got herself indoctrinated by team uniformers, something that'll become more relevant in the next entry, hint hint, in order to reach the next level she saw in Yu and Rika's battle. It's just a masterful fight that has next to no flaws in my eyes. It's the perfect capstone to the deluxe arc and all around kicks ass. The only thing holding it back from the top spot is that the next two fights aren't just great, they're straight up special. Still, the fight is gold and easily earns its spot at number 3. Number 2. The runner-up spot goes to a fight near and dear to our hearts. Urara and Yu have had 3 fights so far in the series, but their most recent one is by far the most impactful and heartwarming of them all. Urara is a sweet girl, earnest and full of joy for life. Getting to the game because of Yu, Vanguard presented her with an opportunity to make friends while also being herself. In the deluxe tournament, she had almost lost her way, but Yu was there to bring her back. But that was just the prelude to the real tragedy. As I mentioned before, one of the impacts of the final battle between Yu and Rika was how it affected Urara. It became the epitome of card fighting, the new heights she wished to reach. But how would she get that kind of strength? Why? By joining a cult, that's how. When Urara joined Team Uniformers, it was legitimately heartbreaking seeing how they warped our girl. They took the sweet cinnamon roll and made her abandon the love she had for the game for a false sense of growth. She had once again lost her way. And that's where Yu stepped in. When he appeared on screen, I straight up cheered for the boy. If anyone could bring back our girl, it's Yu. And the fight between them was both beautiful and disturbing. As the turns progress, you can really tell just how far gone Urara is, fully engulfed in the uniformer ideology. Her inner world is now in shambles, a dark wasteland where all life withers away. It's genuinely horrifying and made the fight so engaging to watch. This fight is also magic in that it makes you root for the MC way harder than ever before. Yu struggles, but he still remains calm and is even prepared to accept the girl's new path if she truly believed in it. The composure he shows here really reminds us why Yu is the leader of Blackout and Urara's mentor. It also irritates Urara, who desperately wished for Yu to acknowledge her strength and continues to thrash the lad. Man, what is with Yu getting smashed right before a comeback? It seems to always happen. Must be the protagonist's blood. Tangent aside, the emotions run high as things feel more and more hopeless and tragic. Then, Mirror's Virina is unveiled and changes the course of the game, reflecting the darkness in Urara's heart and revealing it to her. And can I just say, this scene is freaky, bro. The way she sees her reflections cry out voiceless before jump scaring us with an image of Gyui, it was creepy. Like hella creepy. Thankfully, it also scares her back to her senses. She finally came back, and like in their second fight, the two enjoy the rest of the battle. Perhaps the most tear-jerking moment of the fight came at the very end, where Urara damage checks Leonore and remarks how she's still with her, even now. It all hits in a very real way, especially because the music and animation were also super on point, making the whole thing an experience. While the action might be as intense, but not quite as intense as the previous 2 entries, it pulls ahead in emotional weight, making an absolutely unforgettable fight. It takes number 2 on this list. Number 1. Now the moment you've all been waiting for. The number 1 best fight in all of Willdress and Overdress is Donji vs Michiru Round 2. They certainly saved the best for last here because oh my god man, this finale slapped so hard. And let me say straight up that I was not expecting so much quality and impact from this fight, dude. Sure, Donji is an amazing character, and Michiru is solid too, but it didn't seem that hype at first. But oh boy, the moment those Vanguards flipped over, it was game on. Okay, so let me geek out for a bit and give the play-by-play, because dissecting this game bit by bit will really let its brilliance shine. So straight away, the fight gets interesting as Donji immediately soul charges the effing over trigger off the skill of Steve, the first of many twists and turns this fight will take. It just gets better though, as Michiru goes right after and hits with Jewel Neil Dragon, letting himself soul charge a card, which ends up being his own OT. Truly, this is the greatest equalizer in all of Standard. But seriously, this is a big WTF moment that immediately informs the audience that this fight is gonna get dirty. Both OTs gone immediately. The next instance of WTF is Michiru immediately riding Draw Jeweled Mask on turn 3, or going Persona Ride just to smash Donji hard right away, wiping out his rear guards in the process, mind you. It's unexpectedly hasty and builds up the heat in this battle. Donji hits back just as hard though, using Patrick to also wipe out Michiru's cards. So here we have this wicked mix of aggro and board control from both players, which forces the fight into a simplified game state almost right off the bat. That's a part of the beauty with this fight, as every card and action holds a lot more weight when both players are on the wire like this. To add to the tension, it's hard to say who exactly is going to win this, because even though it's easy to say it's Donji, the dude has never beaten Michiru before, and seeing as how Michiru absolutely spanked Raika in their previous fight, the dude looks pretty unstoppable here. So yeah, this is a pretty wild ride we're on, huh? This is also a good time for me to segue into the discussion for this card fight. In this battle, the topic revolves around the history between Donji and Michiru, and how Michiru views Donji as a player who never ceases to surprise. This key quote of the fight is, "It was neither the strongest move nor the most optimal, but it was a move that will lead you into the future." Although Donji found this and much of what Michiru had to say to be condescending, which low-key I can kind of relate to for personal experience, it's a statement with a lot more weight behind it. See, I mentioned a while back that Michiru adopts a sort of mentoring role for the people he fights. He sees to their strategies and intentions, hell, even the flames of their spirits. In Donji, though, he sees something exceptional, a spirit both passionate and unconventional in nature, and the antithesis of the uniformer way, which seeks to remove the emotion and uniqueness in a fight. Donji may be weaker, but his potential is limitless and makes every fight interesting, which, considering how many fights are on this list, which include Donji, yeah, dude kinda had a point. Anyway, in Michiru's eyes, if Vanguard were to adopt the uniformer way and devolve into only the strictly correct play, then it would lose the essence of what made the game fun and worthwhile. It may as well die. It's a sad but real truth. The essence of Vanguard lies in its unpredictability and the ability to allow players to express themselves. That's what Vanguard means to him. And one of the big reasons why I love this fight so much is because these were my exact feelings on the game too. And it's that theme which contextualizes this entire fight. So, getting back into the play-by-play, Donji's in a pinch. He's almost out of cards, and if that wasn't bad enough, he has no counterblasts left. So, what does Donji do here? He could call the counterchargers in his hand, as Diablos does have one. That would be the most optimal play. But no. Instead, Donji does this. This was, hands down, one of the most legendary and meme-worthy acts in all of Vanguard. Nobody could have predicted that crap. Not you, not me, not even Michiru. This play is the turning point of the game, and really plus what Michiru has been saying up to this point. It wasn't the most optimal move, but it was the one that's now led this battle into a whole new future, one which even Michiru himself couldn't foresee. Now, despite this baller move, Donji is still in a state of desperation and has to resort to calling a heal trigger from hand just to get 3 attacks off. He selects a draw jewel and uses its effect on Michiru, a splendid bit of irony might I add, to weaken the Vanguard. He pulls a critical trigger, empowering the aforementioned heal trigger and cheering while doing so. And that's what I love about Donji in this fight. The dude is just so animate and alive, fully into the game and throwing all of his passion into the fight. Remember what I said about the fight heating up? Well, this dude has literal pillars of fire shooting out every time he takes a turn. So yeah, man's all about bringing the heat. And it's that heat which makes his fight so engaging and exciting, which makes you want to cheer with him and makes every move in this tough situation so much more engaging. Back to the fight though, the plot starts to interject again as Michiru is apparently infected with a virus and causes the virtual world to go into a state of emergency. Despite this though, the both of them continue their fight because, go figure, it's a Cardfight anime. Now, let's just be honest and say that this was basically a death flag for Michiru. He doesn't die at the end, of course, but the man is fully committed to this fight because in his mind, it might very well be the fight where he dies afterwards. So if it's the last one he ever has, he's got to make it worth it. So now the stakes are somehow even higher. Great. So the man takes another swing at Donji, and he somehow survives by the skin of his teeth, relying on a defensive trigger to pull through. Yet another twist. And now it's his turn. Donji gets a critical trigger. My heart sunk the moment I saw this because I thought he had come up short, drawing a bad draw at the very end to shut down this epic chain of events. But no, it doesn't stop there. He activates Draw Jewel's skill. This skill lets him soul charge 2 cards and draw a card. Once again, it's a gamble, and he does it. Not only soul charging the correct cards, but also draws his avatar Bruce, which he calls to the field. What follows is an epic scene as both Bruce and Draw Jewel fight together to take down Draw Jewel's mask and finally defeat Michiru, who passes the torch to Donji before collapsing. God, what a satisfying moment that was. The aftermath is sad though. I mean, for a couple minutes you can't help but think that the dude might be dead. But still, this fight is a goddamn masterpiece. It goes above and beyond in just about every category and really epitomizes the joy of Vanguard. A large part of what makes me love this fight more than any other on this list is just how personal it felt. I can see myself and my friends in these characters as they fought, and the message Michiru shares about the game resonates so deeply. It's something truly special and will always evoke some strong feelings out of a brother. In fact, this fight hits so close to home that even if I were to do a top 10 card fight list for all seasons of Vanguard, period, this fight might still top it. That's just how good it is. In that regard, we're probably going to differ, dear viewer. Everyone has their special fight for them, and as it stands, this one is mine, and that's why I had to take the top spot on this list. And that was the list. It was hard. Really hard. I mean, we go from a top 10 list on Legion Mate, which was so painfully mid that the top 10 fights were basically the only good ones of the season, to Overdress and Willdress, which had so many quality fights, it could have easily been a top 20 list. The new era of Vanguard just has so much going for it. From its characters to the peak animation to music selection. It's not perfect, mind you. I mean, Overdress Season 1 is pretty much regarded as a nothing burger of a season, and for the most part, it kinda was. But apart from that, it's all really great. And as more seasons gets released, I'm pretty sure that it's going to get even better. So, right now, we're eating pretty damn good, fellas. Having said all that, do let me know down in the comments below what you guys think. Did you guys like the list? Or are there ways I can improve? Again, it was hard to make, but pretty damn gratifying too, because it really helped keep such awesome moments fresh in my mind. I probably won't do another one of these top 10 videos for a fat minute though. Want to kind of space them out. But suggestions are still definitely welcome for when the time comes. Oh, and when we do get a few more Willdress seasons, I will be making a new top 10 for it, so there's that to look forward to. Anyway, if you do like this kind of content, then check out my other videos. I do discussion videos like this, fight nights, tier lists, the whole shebang. And if you like what you see, consider leaving a subscribe and turn on that notification bell for the next time I upload a video. And with that, take care, God bless.